Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Well. Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the January 21st, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, Twitter Stream, and iHeartRadio. Email me at richard@wcpt820.com. You can also text me at the 773-763-9278 numbers. Love to hear from you this morning. I know that a number of you probably have some things to say, and you may be kind of staying in your silo and not talking, but give us a call. Also, catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify as the other option. And that's where you can get the short version of Choose Views and the long version, our good interviews that we've done and our conversations. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, driving it home with Patty Vasquez, the big picture with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Check us out at our heartlandsignal.com digital platform and find the good stuff that's there. We may be playing clips that we played yesterday again today, because I had a number of people that said, "Hey, Chew, can you send me that? I want to hear that again." So we may lean into that. Devin's got those prepared. So just FYI, don't think you were rewound to the day before. But that being said, guys, make sure that you do tune into Joan today. Live, local, and progressive. She'll be talking to Dr. Allison Dagnes. Danye, maybe I got that wrong. Professor of the political science at Shippensburg University. Catherine Ross, professor of law at Georgetown University, and Heartland Signal's Rich Eberwein with 3 stories you may have missed from our digital newsroom. Live, local, and progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 Central Time here on WCPT 820. And then what happens tonight from 5 to 7? Elliot Serrano will be filling in for Patty Vasquez, who will be back on Thursday. But for the time being, Patty's show, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weeknights 5 to 7 Central here on WCPT 820. And like I said, catch the Choose Views podcast, full episodes, and Choose Views featured interviews. That's right, that's me. You can subscribe to one or both. The podcasts are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Amazon, and TuneIn. Just search for Choose Views with Richard Chew, or get the links by visiting heartlandsignal.com/choose-views. Great interview yesterday with Ben Jealous, the head of the Sierra Club, who gave a really wonderful speech at the Martin Luther King Operation Push Breakfast over at the museum campus here in Chicago, and also with DeMario Cooper from Popular Democracy. They were both wonderful gentlemen talking about grassroots efforts and making sure that we stay on top of the things that we need to as a country and as a society. All right, guys. So we're here. No surprises. We knew this was coming, right, Devin? What happened yesterday, and I mean the optics of the signing in, the swearing in rather, and all that. Nothing, no surprises. The bump stumbling of the people around him, and the awkwardness, and the Mark Zuckerberg looking down the blouse of Bezos's fiance, and all of that. All of that was, we knew that was coming, okay? And I'm not, look, you won't necessarily hear sarcasm in my voice, but today you will hear a tone of, we knew this was coming. This is no surprise. I looked at the different executive orders that 34-time convicted felon signed, and we're gonna get into all of that today, and as we should. And I'm gonna have some thoughts and observations and some recommendations, which won't be too far afield from things that I've talked about the last 2 months since the election and things prior to that. So, but we knew this was coming, and we knew what we saw yesterday was coming. I was asked a question, and I'll be observant of the fact that there's a lot of finger pointing going on within the conversation within the Democratic quote unquote party and larger base of voters and supporters. Get all of that too. And then, but with all of that, the question is, how do we go forward? It was positioned to me last night by my wonderful wife. What do we do and how do we go forward? And that's a big part of this. And we're going to talk about that this morning. Most definitely will. But one of the things that I just have to touch on is anybody that's commuting today, pretty much anywhere in the Midwest or the Northeast, y'all need to be careful and safe and prepare. Get out early. It is cold out today. My thermometer in my car and on my phone says it's -6. So please, 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 everybody. Yes, the sun is coming out. Please be careful. Please be safe. Give yourself some extra time if you are going to get out. If you got to run out and start your car and let it warm up or what, but just be safe. And then you guys are grown folks. Y'all know what you should be doing. But please do me that favor. Don't get out there stupid today. Don't go out the house without a hat on and some gloves, and all those other things. Take an extra scarf. If you work in a building or an office where you have it might be colder, a little chilly there. Don't throw a sweater in your bag if you need to, or throw a sweatshirt in whatever you got to do so that you're warm. Because when you leave today, presumably if you leave at 5 to 7 o'clock from work, wherever you are, it's only going to be 2 degrees. So please just be safe, y'all. Make sure that you are protected from this weather here in Chicago and throughout the upper Midwest, and even places in the Northeast and the central, the Mid-Atlantic. Just be careful. Be safe. All right. I've said that. You know where I come from. I'm always giving you my little Richard Shue weather report because I want folks to be safe as you're out and about today. So, box check. Be safe. I said it this morning. All right. Coming back to where we were with regard to the show today, we've got 2 wonderful guests that are going to be with us this morning. And I'm excited to talk to this one young man, Michael Hoffman, Be a Scribe, written this really cool book that we're going to talk about and shed a little light of creativity on you this morning and what he has to say about the book and what inspired him. That it's a good opportunity to have someone like that on the show. And in the later in the show, we will have Kate Lincoln Goldfinch with us, immigration attorney who we had on shortly after the election. To talk about what's happening, and may be, what's on the horizon. And Kate is right. I mean, she's, as I use the phrase, she's sleeves rolled up, elbows deep in the fight in the space of immigration. So I'm looking forward to talking with her in the 7:30 hour. So you guys stay tuned for that and make sure that you plug in and listen to what she says and how you can be involved in the process. I'm going to hit the Choose Views news real quickly, and then I want to shift to talk about something that I read that I thought would be important to you guys in the question about what do we do to go forward. So over at Choose Views News, today on January 21st, 2025, the numbers to watch this week. And of course, while we may have just experienced the Martin Luther King holiday, the U.S. economic activity this week is tied to the annual World Economic Forum, which is the gathering that opens in Davos, Switzerland. Can't say those two together, Devin. University of Michigan, meanwhile, will release its final reading of the consumer sentiment for January, following a week in which a key price gauge showing softer inflation rekindled hopes for interest rate cuts this year. The Federal Reserve's next set rates will be on the 29th of January. And as I said about Davos, this meeting kicked off yesterday, and the event is expected to bring together 3,000 global leaders to address key topics around the theme of collaboration for the intelligent age, including divisions in the global economy, the impact of technology, and the efforts to combat climate change. This year's executives are also likely to focus on deal-making, deregulation, and threats to global trade. So that's happening. It is an event that, the U.S. is definitely going to have a major impact in. We just said this before about the cold. It's gripping the U.S. and the South as they're facing in the South storms and dangerously cold temperatures. according to the National Weather Service, affecting more than 230 million people. And a rare winter storm is taking aim in the south. Houston airports will be shut down today, and other major travel disruptions are expected. Georgia, Louisiana have declared states of emergency, and some schools and state offices in the region will be closed. So there you go. We saw that, 34-time convicted felon moved they had the event moved inside. Costco, last but not least, union workers are voting to strike. More than 85% of Costco's 18,000 unionized workers have voted to authorize a nationwide strike over fair wages and benefits, according to the Teamsters, the union that's representing these employees. Unless a new deal is reached, the strike will take effect on the 31st of January when the current contract expires. In preparation for the deadline, last week, the Teamsters held practice pickets across the country. Costco's CEO said the company is focused on a fair and timely process. Historically, as the data will show, Costco has been favorable to fair wages and making sure that folks are getting paid properly. So I'm hoping that they can work this out. Costco recently was one of the companies that stood up and said, no, we're not taking our DEI protocols out of the mix. So let's hope that they can stay in that vein, Devin. But listen, guys, glad you're here. Hope you're waking up and you kind of getting moving this morning. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chew.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that. Let's get the conversation going on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Want to hear from you this morning. I know you guys have things to say. There's some frustrations. There are concerns. There's anger. There are all those things I know that's going through. And there's some people that might actually be like, hey, no big deal. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm not going to shut you down unless you act a fool. Then I'll shut you down. That being said, I want to hear from you because I know that there's a lot of people that are like the day after the election, are concerned. So let's talk about it. And speaking of day after the election, I was sent this really, I guess you'll call it, I'm calling it Venus Williams on the future. And this goes back to a timely reminder from Venus Williams after November 5th. And it's a little bit of, just thoughts about how you can move forward, how you can think forward. And this is something that she put out. You are, quote, awakening to the same country you fell asleep to, the very same country. Pull yourself together. And when you see me, don't ask me, what do we do now? We all get through, how do we get through the next few years? Our ancestors dealt with at least 400 years of this under worse conditions. That's a fact. Continue to do work. Continue to build bridges, not walls. Continue to lead with compassion. Continue the demanding work of liberation for all. Continue to dismantle broken systems, large and small. Continue to set the best example for the children. Continue to be the vessel of nourishing joy. Continue right where you are, right where you live into your days. Do so in the name of the Creator who expects nothing less from each of us. Let me read that again. Continue right where you are, live into your days. Do so in the name of the Creator who expects nothing less from each of us. And if you are not continuing all the above in community, partnership, collaboration, what is it that you have been doing? And what is it that you're waiting for? And I read that and I thought, to the spirituality part that's there, there's meaning. But at the same time, there are communities, mine in particular, and others, we could name 2 or 3 other specific communities in this nation that have seen far worse under worse conditions. That's a fact. That is not taking away from any of the things that we have seen and may see in this next 2 to 4 years. But it does highlight the fact that there are shoulders that we've all stood on and we stand on to this day. And we have to recognize that as part of our fighting back. So when I'm asked the question, Richard, what do we do? How do we go forward? It's to fight back. Okay? Let me put this to you guys over the next few minutes and how my view of strategy. And there's a couple pieces of this that I want to sort of meld together when it comes to quote unquote warfare. First of all, the first thing you have to do is get right with yourself. You just do. I mean, I'll put it in the vein of this cold day weather that we're dealing with. You got to get right with yourself first. I was saying to Devin during the break, I said, why am I going to, I won't use the B word, but why am I going to be and moan? I probably can use the word, but I'm not going to use the word. Why am I going to complain and moan about the cold weather? Just get your butt dressed and ready and get out the door. Okay? So I had to get right with me first. I had to decide what it was I was going to do to tackle this weather this morning. So in this same space, because I can't change the weather, and then Devin and I were talking about this, we literally can't change the weather, but I can change the way that I'm going to approach fighting the weather. And so I will suggest to all of us, and I'm not saying to you, I'm saying to all of us, get right with yourself first and determine what it is that you're going to really fight for and what you're going to do in that fight. But the first thing, the second thing you got to do after you determine that is you have to determine who you're going to fight with, who you're going to most immediately connect with. Because when there's stress and when there's angst and when there's worry, oftentimes we pull in and we get insular, and that's the wrong thing to do. So, being transparent, I turned to my wife and I said, the first thing is that we're going to stay connected and close, and we've got each other. That's the very first thing I said, because I don't have all the answers. And I appreciate you guys listening to me and the rest of us on WCPT. We don't have all the answers, but the one answer that we do have is that we have to connect with each other. And I'll be doggone if I'm going to let any of these knuckleheads take that away from us. So I'm first connected with my wife and making sure that we're tight and we're connected and we're a force to be reckoned with. Whether you're married or not, you have to find that person or persons that you're going to be connected with and connected to. Trust me when I tell you that. You have to find those people. You should have found them already, but I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. Find those people you're going to be connected with, and stay connected with them. Find out who your partners are. Because we can't change the weather, but we can sure as hell decide how we're going to go out and fight the weather. So, those are two things right out of the gate. Get right with yourself and get right with the one. Make sure you're connected and let the people that you are close to know you're close to them. Embrace your children if you have children. Let them know we're going to win this fight. Okay? You wouldn't send your children out on a cold day like today without protection for those who have children or nieces and nephews that are having to head out into this stuff. You wouldn't do it. You'd make sure they're really uber protective. So start there. You got to start there. Now, that's a strategy that is not about fighting necessarily the political forces that are out there that are detrimental to us, but it is a strategy about getting our heads right so that we're fighting and moving in the same direction. What I will tell you is, yes, we are at war. We are going to be at, political war and social war with this administration. So we have to all be galvanized and working together. And I know that sometimes it sounds like I'm quote, for anybody that's thinking that I'm missing it, I'm missing the horror that's in front of us and the awfulness that, listen, I read the list of the executive orders last night, and it would be easy for me to finger point. And there's some value in finger pointing, and let me tell you what I mean by that. The value in the finger pointing is that it allows us to determine going forward who we are going to work with and who we're going to work for. What do I mean by that? You gotta, if we want to look at the numbers, and we're going to look at the numbers, we know that there's a percentage of people, small that it may be, in certain communities that had their heads up their behind, and they were filled with arrogance in terms of voting for the 34-time convicted felon. There's a percentage of quote unquote Black folks, black men specifically, that did. Hispanic men that did. Muslim men that did. However, and I'm going to say this and I'm going to get off this part of the point, the largest percentage of people who voted for the 34-time convicted felon do not fit into those communities. That's just a fact. That's not me picking on anybody. That's not me preaching about that to sound angry. Those are the numbers, y'all. We know where the real math is in terms of the total amount of voters in any state in the country. Mathematically, in central Michigan, there aren't enough people that are African-American men and Hispanic men and Muslim men, even with the knuckleheads that were uncommitted in the Dearborn, Detroit suburb. Just the math doesn't work, okay? We know that there were a large number of people that sat on the sidelines that didn't vote at all. And some of that can be laid at the feet of the Democratic Party in terms of some people have said, Richard, they weren't inspiring enough. But at the end of the day, those people made a decision to not get out and vote. They made a decision to not look at the data and the information and say, you know what, this dude's crazy. And he's going to bring in crazy people that's going to impact my life. There are people who sat back and said, it's not going to impact me. I'm not going to show up. But the greater percentage of people that did vote for this fool fit into are the largest two voting populations in the country. That's a fact. It's not my opinion, and it's not anecdotal. That is a fact. The largest two voting groups in the country voted for this fool. So that's the little bit of finger pointing that I'm going to do, but it's for a purpose, and that purpose is those folks are the ones that have to be reminded that they're at they're at the tip of the spear for the cause of what's happening. And for they have in their mind, they made the decision that it's not going to impact me or I want to see harm to others. Because that's what the net result is. However, that harm, and this is where the mess around and find out comments have been thrown about, that harm is going to be 1 or 2 degrees of separation from them. They've got a cousin, they've got a mom, they've got an auntie, they've got a dear friend that's going to be impacted by the executive orders and the other craziness that's coming. So those are the facts as it relates to the numbers and in terms of what are the largest two voting groups in the country and how did they end up voting? Okay, because and people can say that certain groups that voted for Trump in terms of African American men, Hispanic men, Muslim men were higher than in the past. That's true, but here's the real salient point: there's still 52% of another voting bloc that continue to vote for this garbage, and nearly 72%, I got to have my numbers exactly right, but a higher percentage of that other largest group that voted for this. So why is finger pointing important as it relates to the solution? The Democratic Party has to look at that and understand that those people made a decision to cause the harm and give the gun to the monkey yet again. At the same time, I said this the other day with the numbers, over 35% of America didn't vote. And they're going to be impacted by this new administration. They're going to be impacted by these executive orders. So the solution from a political standpoint for the Democratic Party is that we have to, as I've said for a long time, we have to work harder to get those people off their behinds and out and involved in the process. That's just a fact, guys. So as much as I can point fingers and there's some finger pointing quote that needs to happen to help determine where the problem is, it's also about how do we go forward. And when we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I believe is a big part of the go forward. As I said, though, the first thing is get dressed for the cold. Don't run out here stupidly. Be prepared for this cold that's coming. And I do mean the literal weather, but also this political and social and economic cold. And the first thing you have to do is make sure you're connected to your loved ones and make sure that you know that they know that you're there for them and that they know that and you know that they're there for you. It starts with you. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. All right, let's grab some calls. Let's go to Jim here in Chicago. Jim, good morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. How are you?
Good. What's going on?
Well, you had asked me, you had asked the listeners before the election, what would you tell loved ones that were MAGA?
Right.
And I responded, be careful what you ask for.
Okay.
And I have loved ones that are MAGA. And now they're the working poor and Medicaid. They're on Medicaid and Obamacare.
Right.
And they're going to be in a lot of pain. So I believe, like you said, I actually got a little emotional about that letter that you wrote, that somebody wrote in about being a light. It's like you have to be the light for these people. I still love the MAGA people that I know. I think I know this is bad for them. It's like Jim Jones I compared Trump to Jim Jones. What he was saying sounded good. It was a pretty good deal having a nice commune with people that had things in common. But when you drink that Kool-Aid, it tasted good. But you go to help, and then, obviously we know the results, and that's what's happening now. They drink the Kool-Aid, and they're the ones that are in the pain. I'm not. I'm a union electrician. I'm doing great. I'm going to fight for the unions. But I will be there when my MAGA loved ones need help. I'm going to be the light, and I'll take them in if I have to. I don't care. I love these people.
Yeah.
So I think in that part of it, we need to be the light and do the loving. On the other hand, I am so angry right now that I will literally fight against in a civil, disobedient, nonviolent way, whatever it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have enough experience. I'm 60 years old. I've been through the Reagan baloney. I've been through a lot of this stuff. And so now I am angry on that part, and I am empathetic for the MAGA loved ones.
Well, I got to tell you, Jim, first of all, thanks for your contribution, and I commend you for having a big enough heart to be that way. And, listen, what came to mind when you were talking, and I just wanted to listen to what you were saying. And by the way, that which I read was something that actually Venus Williams, the tennis player, wrote. And if you email me, I'll get it. I'll send it to you. But here's the thing, Jim. What came to mind when you were talking about that and what you're going to do, and there's a part of this that has to be part of our go forward. And I don't want to sound like Mr. Kumbaya, but Dr. King was about the way in which we embrace our fellow man, fellow person is with love, and love wins out. Now, there's a lot of folks that would say, Richard, you've lost your damn mind, because they don't love us. They hate us. They hate what we stand for and what we believe in, and et cetera, et cetera. And I get that. It is a delicate situation, and approaching it with love is going to be part of this process, or certainly embracing it with a certain amount of care. Maybe that might be the other word to use. But I applaud you for having a big enough heart to open up and say that that's where you're going to be. You hate their actions, but you love them yet the same. And that's a thing to be commended for, Jim, this morning. I have to say that to you.
In addition to self-care, like you said. So if you're in an airplane and they lose oxygen, you have to grab yourself so you can help others. So you have to be the person, in spite of them drinking the Kool-Aid, you have to be the one to go there and go help them. And that's on a personal level. Now, as far as political level, I'm ready to go. I am fired up. So I think that is our. Oh gosh, I've laid in front of trucks during the Tribune strike. Happy to do it. Civil disobedience, and like you said, this too shall pass. Being a white person, I don't know what the black community has gone through, and like you said, in the history of slavery. It's only 3 generations, 4 generations, from maybe 2 generations from being just totally not treated as a human.
Yeah. Well, that's that. First, again, Jim, thank you for those comments. And part of what we have to do is remind ourselves. And I was thinking about this in the middle of the night. I woke up and I thought about this, and I said the one thing that we cannot do, which is what they're trying to do, is to tear us apart. We can't allow this craziness to tear us apart as a society, but more importantly, candidly, specifically, our side of this conversation, because they want to keep chipping off and peeling away and chipping off and peeling away. We can't allow that to happen. And that's why I use the word galvanize so often, because we have to make sure we protect our own right now as much as we do anything else. So I appreciate you, Jim. I appreciate your call and your contribution. Stay strong. You know where to find us. We're going to keep doing the best we can to bring you the best we can. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jim. Have a great day and stay safe.
You too.
All right. So Jim's point is well taken. Listen, we can get into the functionality of our electoral system and elections, and the electoral college is jacked up. It needs to be gone. But it's going to be probably an election cycle or 2, if not longer, before that goes away. I was in an email text banter last night with Eric Grant and Michelle and Adrian from the family meeting, and we were talking about, the one thing that is hugely problematic is the fact that we've got this, to Jim's point, this slaves old, this enslavement old, Jim Crowish old way of electing a president, which is the Electoral College. There's no way in hell that Montana should have, proportionate to the population, the same electoral power that California does. There's no way in hell that should happen. That should have been fixed a long time ago. But we keep rinsing and repeating that same garbage. Listen, I'm not dissing on Montana, but you all do not deserve to have the same voting power in the final analysis as we do here in Illinois or California or any of the other states that have more. Hell, you shouldn't have as much as Texas does. So let's put red against red so that nobody's saying, oh, I'm being partisan-esque by design. There's no way in hell Montana or Idaho should have the same voting power on a national election as Texas does. And that's another red state. So don't call me being partisan. That's just numbers, y'all. It is. But anyhow, Jim, thank you for your big heart in this space. And if you're looking for that piece that Venus Williams wrote, just send me an email at richard@wcpt820.com and I'll get it to any of you guys. Let's see. Let's go to another call. Let's go to Kurt in Akron, Ohio. Good morning, Kurt. Welcome to the show.
You partisan hack, you. No, if you really wanted to talk serious about it, Montana, Wyoming, and North and South Dakota, they probably have still less population than the state of California and have just as much, if not more, voting power than the state of California.
Yep, they do. And that's a problem. Yeah. It's not going to get fixed for at least another maybe 1 or 2 election cycles, if then.
I hope so.
Because it favors having that state have that much political power, which, but anyhow.
My question is, how does a state like South Dakota go from George McGovern to Kristi Noem?
There's a simple answer for it. And this is the thing that a lot of the country shies away from. White America is afraid of not being empowered and having the privilege of being white in America. It's that simple. One of the biggest problems, Kurt, that this country has, in fact, it's not one of, it is the biggest problem that this country has. And all you got to do is look at the first 5 to 6 revocations of orders that Trump signed in yesterday. They all focus on not allowing anything other than whiteness to be the rule. They do, or whiteness or straight white maleness to be the rule. That's the number.
So
that's the reason why those states have those quote unquote powers, or why they've gone from McGovern to a Kristi Noem. It's about keeping the country in that status quo of whiteness. It just is.
So in sum up, I'll be fine.
At the end of the day, I mean, that's the reason. Let's just be what I.
I'm saying that sarcastically, folks. I'm not saying that.
But Kurt, let's press pause for a second. Here's the thing. I appreciate you saying it that way. I know you, and I know you as a guy that is down with the cause, and you're history central, and that's a compliment. But let's just be brutally honest. You sent me a text that was spot on about Nellie. If Nellie were to drive through Portage County at 1 mile over the speed limit and happened to get pulled over by one of Bruce Zukowski's, Nazi sheriff's deputies, Nellie would suddenly find out about white supremacy. So the point is, yes, you are going to be fine. That's the reality. You're going to, and I'm glad for it. You're a friend of mine. I want you to be fine. The problem is, again, we go back and I
want everyone else to be fine. That's the thing.
That's the thing. I could read, I'm not going to read them all. There's so many of these executive orders, but the first 7 are all ones that are about removing this great country's ability to protect people and to partner with people that are of color, that are of the LGBTQ community, or are of a certain age. That is about protecting straight white maleness in America. Nothing other than that.
And you forgot middle-aged America, too.
Well, but that's why I said and of age, because I was trying to come up with the word that would roll all this in. Because ultimately, Kurt, what that says is, this is what that really does say about the country. And y'all brace yourselves. It says that there's a lot of mediocre white Americans that have been running this country for a long time, and they know they're mediocre. They're not exceptional like you or Karen or Stephanie or Kurt or Tom Hartman or Patty Vasquez. But I'm not white. I'm talking about white folks. Okay, talking about white folks. That's the part. They're not exceptional like you guys are, and they know that they're not. That's the whole reason why you have white men in America, racist white men in America, telling their wives and their female partners that they need to stay home barefoot and pregnant. That's what it's at the core of it. And oftentimes,
or as my mother said the day after the election when she was working the polls, how many times she saw white male spouses, looking over the partition to see how their wives are voting.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. It's that simple. Mediocrity. Eric Grant has talked about this. We've been talking about this for years. The decisions that have been made by the mediocre men of our country.
I mean, when you think about it, think about this, too. Think about this. Bill Clinton and Joe Biden were 2 exceptional white men. Jimmy Carter was an exceptional white man as well. And think of all the good they did. I mean, what did it just come out that Jimmy Carter created more jobs in 4 years than Reagan and W. Bush combined in 16?
But nobody wants to talk about that because Reagan was mediocre at best. He was a mediocre actor. He was a mediocre actor.
Or as my grandpa said in 1980, he was a B-movie actor back in the 40s. He's going to be a B-movie president in the 80s.
He was a C-level president at best. Reagan was a disaster, and he was a disaster for people who are now of age as it relates to Medicare and Medicaid eligibility benefits. So,
and I was young during Reagan, but that kind of struck a chord with me yesterday when you were talking about Reagan too. But I was aware of what was going on. My mom and dad made us watch the news. They made us be aware of what was around us, and and I said it to you yesterday, a text about it too. Just imagine had Bob Dole and Claude Pepper, who were the chairman of that Social Security committee that decided to tax Social Security back in 1983, and that was to save Social Security into 2036, which that's coming around the corner. Just imagine if they would have, instead of saying let's tax Social Security, let's get rid of the cap altogether, and anybody who makes any amount of money pays into Social Security on their payroll tax. Just imagine what that would have done to Social Security going into the 21st century or the 22nd century.
Well, Kurt, imagine what it would have done to our overall economy. Imagine how much more money. This is what people don't get. Imagine how much more money there would be in the coffers of the United States of America. How much more development could have taken place when it comes to education and health and welfare. The welfare of health of the community. And the list goes on and on. But mediocre dudes made decisions that were
And let's be fair, Claude Pepper was a Florida Democrat.
Sure he was. I know he was.
So I mean, there's mediocre all over.
I didn't put it to party. I put it to the community.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, let's be fair. The Claude Pepper was a Democrat from Florida, so we got to be fair to that too.
Well, but that in and of itself defines those Southern Democrats that here we are.
Can I be honest? Can I be brutally honest with you on Claude Pepper in that era?
Yeah.
Those were Southern Democrats who voted against the Civil Rights Act of 1964 when they were in the Congress at that time too.
I know.
So I mean,
that's the double-edged sword of that, and I lived through it, and I'm a little bit older than you. I lived through it, but also I understand my parents lived through it real time, and my family lived through it real time.
And I will say, God bless Bob Dole for at least voting for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. But again, those Democrats from the 80s that were in the Congress, those are the ones who were still in the Congress in the 90s, in the early to mid 90s, who were there in the early, mid, and late 60s. Those are the ones that were converting over to the Republican Party, like your Richard Shelby, like your Phil Gramm, like all those other people who decided, the Democratic Party lost its way, and the Republican Party is the party of the working man. The Republican Party is the party of inclusion, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you guys just can't let go. That's the problem.
Exactly.
And that's where we need to. And that's what we need to do. We need to know who those elders were, what they fought for, learn from that, and build on that. Because, like you said, we've got shoulders to stand on, good, bad, or indifferent, and we need to build on that. We need to learn from that. You just imagine if the United States actually taught bad history like Germany does. I mean, think how Germany learns about the Nazis, for goodness sake. And would Elon Musk have been able to get away with what he did yesterday with that, that salute?
That salute. America doesn't want to do that in great measure. So, but Kurt, we got to grab a quick break, man. Thanks for the call and the reminder about how dang cold it is outside. We'll talk to you soon, man.
By the way, it's -10 here today. It's colder than a witch's elbow.
There you go. All right, man. Be well. Be safe. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Quick break, guys. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views. We'll be back. We'll grab some more of your calls. Stay with us.
It's Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to Choose Views. So how do we fight this? I got a text that says we have to play the game the way the game is, not the way we want it to be. We have to win elections playing the game the way it is, not how we want it to be. And I agree with that. Thank you, Texas, for that. And what that means to me in a very practical, literal sense, more people out to vote. We have to get that 69 plus million people, or 36% of people that did not vote, out to vote. That's part of it. That's part of how we win the game, is we win those people. We get those people in the mix. And is it better candidates? Is it better, more directed messaging to those people? It's all of that. It's not one of those things in a singular sense. But the thing that has to happen right now, there's no question about this, is that we have to fight forward. Someone said to me, Richard, you talk about that, but what are the specific tools for fighting? One of those tools is to let those who are currently elected at all levels, whether it's the mayor of your community, the county leaders, the state leaders, or the federal leaders, know that you're there and that you're watching. If this means something to you, then it means that daily, minimally, weekly, whatever your temperament is, you have to be willing to put in the work. Okay? You have to be willing to put in the work. And what does that mean? It means to find out what it is. Ask yourself, what is it that I'm going to do? Or what are the things, plural, that I'm going to do? And then get really doggone good at it. And then wash, rinse, and repeat. So that may mean calling your congressional office. That may mean calling your mayor, your county, your state officials weekly, whatever your temperament is. It starts there. I know that sounds like, okay, yeah, Richard. It starts there. Second step. First step is you, like I said earlier in the show, is getting you right. The second step, I'm just saying, is you've got to determine what part of the fight you're going to take on and then get good at it. I know it. Listen, 69 million or 36.4% of the voting population didn't vote. Let's peel off that percentage the next weeks, months to come. Let's start to peel off and get those people in the mix. Now, we can walk and chew gum because getting involved, contacting your leaders, letting them know you're there, telling them to do more work, telling them to work harder, that's what they're paid for. All of those things are important. And making the message loud and proud to people that are out there. Making sure that people know that we will not sit back and let this truck run over us. That's part of it, guys. Listen, it's not rocket science. We've got these executive orders in mass that he just dropped on us. And part of the other thing, too, I want to say, and then we're going to grab some calls, so stay with us, guys. The other thing I want to say about this is, in this fight, shock and awe is what took place yesterday. Let me just be straight up with you guys. Awful, awful executive orders, rescinding things that are designed to help people. And yeah, there's a bunch of knuckleheads out there who ask for this and you're getting it. You're going to be pained by this. Or if you didn't think it was going to touch you, as I said earlier, 1 or 2 degrees of separation that is going to be pained by this. For those who walk around saying, I don't do politics, and all that other garbage, you're going to have somebody in your family that's pained by this. But yesterday was a lot of shock and awe. It was designed to sort of get people freaked out, like, oh my God. So take a deep breath, guys, in this, and know that was a part of the process, is to shock and awe people. Like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. He did that. I kind of laughed at it in the sense that I was like, yeah, we saw this coming and that's awful, but we saw this coming. These initial rescissions that are harmful executive orders are part of the shock and awe. So some of this is to tie a knot in a rope and hold on, because that was part of the goal. But that's designed to kind of chip away and chip folks away from being connected. I promise you that's part of warfare. If you've read books like The Art of War by Sun Tzu, you'll see this is in there. This is part of it. The shock and awe is designed to get people to get freaked out. And while they're freaked out, it's kind of like a clash bang that military and law enforcement will use, because it stuns everybody. And while they're stunned, they're caught off guard and they don't have reaction time is taken away. Okay, literally, that's the design of it. If you've ever watched any of the high energy movies where the police are going after a criminal, or the special forces are going out, they throw those whatever the clash bang things inside to shock everybody, to throw them off, and that's when they then start to chip away and they can succeed at their mission of whatever they're doing. That's what happened in great measure yesterday. I'm not making light of it. I'm saying that was part of the game. So know that and be ready for the next thing that may come. In many ways, they tipped their hand. They want to throw a lot at us to throw us off our game. No, don't get thrown off your game. Know that this is what was coming. This was part of the plan. All right. I knew that this was going to happen this morning. So, guys, I know that you guys are there with calls. Sit tight. I don't want to blow through another break. We're going to hit this break, and then when we come back, I'll grab your calls right after the break. I promise you that. All right, Dev, let's go. Let's do this one a little bit early. 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views, second hour, 773-763-9278. I'm going to read you guys a quick quote, the text that was sent to me. I don't care whether you've never voted Democratic before in your lives. I'm begging you right now, if you don't get involved locally over the next 2 years, the Republican Party is going to move in, and it could only end up being a slaughter. Listen, please listen, people. There you go. All right, let's go to Pam here in Chicago, Devin. Good morning, Pam. Thanks for holding, dear. How are you doing this morning?
Overall, I'm well, Richard, because I know that in the midst of all of this, I will be okay in my family, but I'm always putting the concern of others, in the mix. And, Richard, I understand your sentiment, and I know that you're a fighter, and I understand, the message that Venus Williams put out, but here's my concern.
Okay.
She was baptized a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, to my knowledge, do not vote. So if she didn't vote, that message just kind of is hollow for me.
It falls on deaf ears. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It does. Now, I understand that, yes, we've got to get through this, and you've got to pull on all of your positive resources, spiritually, your family, your community. I know what we've got to do to get through this, Richard, but I'm not going to absolve those people who supported this sexual abuser.
Not at all.
Who violated women, who, in the midst of his cheating escapade with Stormy Daniels, said that she reminded him of his daughter, and then additionally said that, he dated his daughter.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know.
The perversion in him. But not only that, it is the hate. The hate that he perpetrated back in the 70s when he discriminated against black families. The adoration of Hitler. See, people supported this, and now they want, to be absolved, and they want excuses. I can't offer it, but what I can say is this. I believe if you voted for this, then, Richard, something is wrong with you. And it's up to you to get some psychiatric help or talk to somebody. I'm serious, Richard. I know it sounds kind of trite, right?
No, it doesn't, Pam, at all. I mean, listen,
okay.
I will tell you that I have to put the brakes on Richard Chew when it comes to what I could say. Devin and I, we chuckle off, I'm making you laugh for a reason, Pam. But listen, you all know that there are things that I could say about the situation that I'm not going to say on the air, because I want you to understand I am plugged into this. I am, there's a reason that I was awake a couple times in the middle of the night thinking through what's going on. It's because I know it's serious. No one, please, anybody, if I get a few phrases or words wrong, or if I say something that's a little bit not quite how you want to line up, it's not because I'm not plugged into this. Trust me.
I know you are, Richard, and I know.
And so it's not that. It's that I feel an obligation, a responsibility to take that energy, that frustration, and turn it into something that will allow us to put a shield around us as we work to go forward.
So let me then give some solutions of some things I'm doing. So first, there was a cool hand Luke. I think the guard told Paul Newman, we got to get our minds right. This is Democratic Party and in this country. Okay, get your mind right first. So Richard, here's some of the things I'm doing. I'm trying to support organizations with membership and donations that are doing the work.
Yeah.
Those are a civil rights organization. Any organization that is beating back against hate, discrimination, and really want to stand for the rule of law. With our media, we're going to have to monitor, because I heard some things. I didn't watch the inauguration, but I heard some things yesterday that just were, I was like, that can't be a reporting. So perhaps those who email, those who are on social media do that. But if you're going old school, get some postcards and just write the message. So if they don't open the letter, someone in that organization is going to read the message on the postcard.
Go ahead, Pam. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, and then you're absolutely right. We're going to have to organize and mobilize. There was a wonderful Martin Luther King celebration, which happened to air on TV. And Pastor Barber was the keynote speaker. And, of course, this was at the King Center. Dr. King's daughter, Dr. Bernice King, was there. And they talked about their father, his love for people, all people, But then, Richard, I just have a quote, and I'll end with this. Because one of the quotes, you all can get the full quote, but it says, the ultimate logic of racism is genocide.
Mm-hmm.
And then in that, Dr. King went on and explained, please read that quote, because he wasn't about hate. He was about nonviolence. And he asked us to get out there and do the work. But we have to have alliances and partnerships to do the same. That's what I'm asking the white community. I'm not trying to – I don't have time to hate anyone, Richard. But you've got to stand for the truth. The Jewish community, if that was a Hitler salute, a Nazi salute, they have to come out and say something. The billionaires who care about people have to be willing to stand up.
Right.
It's incumbent on all of us.
And stand up right now, not wait.
Yes.
You know, stand up right now. Don't give this, a year to figure it. No, it's right here in front of us.
Thank you.
Right
Don't
now.
let it, because thank you. We have a person who in my opinion, we have a person who hates black people in the White House. And I believe he will use every resource, the Department of Grifting. I call it Department of Grifting Everybody, DOGE, the Department of Grifting Everybody. He is going to take whatever he can from the working class, poor, even middle class families.
Yeah.
And then redistribute that back to the wealthy.
Without a doubt.
Our society cannot sustain that.
Well, and that's the reason that I said earlier that, the pushback has got to start with, as an individual, are you willing to sit back and take it? And if you're not, and you should not you, Pam, but those of us collectively, then that's where the fight starts, is with you saying, I'm not going to take this mess. I'm just not going to do it. And then galvanizing, partnering, and connecting with others who are the same way. We came very, very close, and I know close only counts in horseshoes, but we have to remember that there is a significant number of people that are out there that fought for this just as hard as we did. All of us did. Let's not forget that, guys. Please don't forget that. So.
And let's not, Richard, forget about the population of the Native Americans, what they were and what they are now. See, there is a system of what this does. And lastly, I'm just going to say we are getting ready to witness the biggest grift ever coming out of the White House.
Yep, out of the White House.
A massive big grift.
Yep, that sucking sound, like Ross Perot said, is y'all's money being sucked right through the White House. So, Pam, thank you.
So thank you, Richard.
We're gonna keep fighting. We're gonna keep fighting. All right, Pam. Thanks for your call, dear. Have a great day. Let's see if we can squeeze in one quick call before we go to break. Dave from Darien. Dave, good morning and welcome to the show. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great, Rich. I want to thank you for your responsiveness. I haven't called in before, but I've texted and emailed you, and you're always amazingly responsive. I'm sure you get inundated, so thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Of course. I just want to make an observation and draw an analogy with MAGA and something I've shared with some people. But the analogy is that MAGA to me is very synonymous with what happened in the Catholic Church and the abuse of children. And the reason I bring that up is if you think about what Trump is, to me, he's like the monstrous priest. The guy is obviously very ill, in my opinion, and I think that there are things about him. He just can't help himself in a lot of ways. I think he's very mentally ill and can't control himself. And then you have the innocent, what I would refer to, the people that attend MAGA rallies is kind of the innocent children that are drinking the Kool-Aid, really clueless, don't have an idea who this monster is. And then, but to me, the most villainous and the most evil part are the people in the church who protect these priests, the diocese, going all the way up to the cardinal level, and knew exactly what these monsters were, who they were. And that's the people that voted for Trump and actually knew exactly who he is, to me, is the most monstrous element of all of this.
Dave, let me ask you a question. No, let me ask you a question, because this is something that I say sometimes, but since you brought it to the table, let me ask you this question. If you and I were sitting around just chatting up and talking about this, having a cigar, drinking a glass of wine or whatever, bottle of beer, iced tea.
Sounds great.
It sounds great. So, but check this out, Dave. So to your point about they I want to know from you, do you actually think that they did not know? Do you actually think that they got bamboozled, or do you think that they knew, they were fully aware, and they made a decision to go in this direction?
Oh, I think they were fully aware.
All right.
Absolutely. I think there's a very small subset. There's no way that the MAGA crowd who actually is snowed by this guy would have put that guy in the White House. Absolutely no chance.
I appreciate you being honest
chance
about that, brother, because there's a part of me that just goes, there's no way in hell. There's no way in hell. These people put their drawers on and their shirts and their ties and their dresses and their suits and their whatevers, and they roll out every day, and they go to their jobs, and in some cases may solve some complicated issues at the work that they do. There's no way in hell that they did not know what they voted for. I'm not of the mind, Dave. I'm not of the mindset, and y'all don't be upset with me for saying that everybody that voted for Donald Trump was a snaggletooth, long-haired fool. Okay.
Exactly.
Of any community.
Exactly. There's too many smart people out there, but it's you're serving your best interests, what you feel are your best selfish interests. And that is what makes me just livid. And I'll make one question I'll pose to you, Richard, on that same election. I may have mentioned this in a text, but I have 3 daughters. My middle daughter's special ed, wonderful young lady, special ed teacher, but she was despondent after the election, just hysterical. And we were talking yesterday, and she said, Dad, she said, I still don't buy the integrity of this election. Now, we can go down this whole conspiracy route, but I would say this, it's past the point where anything logical could be done. But it seems like what put Trump in the office wasn't that so many more people voted for him. It was that so few people that would have voted Democrats turned out. And I'm just wondering, in those swing states, if there would be any kind of way from an analysis to send some kind of communication to people to say, you know what?
Who did you vote for?
Because we're or
who did you really vote for? Right.
Did you vote?
Or did you vote at all? Right.
Did you vote? Because if it was dramatically lower in those swing states in a given county or precinct or wherever, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That there were so millions and millions of so few people. I kind of agree with that, and I don't want to go down the conspiracy route. We have to accept it. I get that. But it just seems to do some kind of post-analysis would make sense.
Got it. Dave, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate you, and I will keep responding to the emails as best I can. Have a great day, and thanks for your contribution.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, man. Be well. All right, Devin, let's take a 30-second break, and let's see if we can – oh, there we go. He's here already. Let's take a 30-second break. You grab that call, and we'll come back, and we'll talk to our guests. Can we do that? Yeah. All right. Hey, guys, welcome back to Choose Views. We had to kind of squeeze things in. When we got guests, we got to make sure we're staying as timely as we can. This morning, we have what I'll call a young cat with us this morning, and a little bit of a bright spot on this crazy post-inauguration day. Michael Hoffman. Do I have it? Do I have it right, Michael? Welcome to the show this morning. Welcome to Choose Views.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Author of Be a Scribe. Look, man, I dig your book. I'm a reader of things, but I also like pictures, particularly when they have to do with Egyptian history and all the rest, because I'm a big believer in the power of what's come out of the continent of Africa, but most certainly specifically the country of Egypt. I love your book. Tell us a little bit about it.
Sure, yeah. So it's essentially a translation of an ancient Egyptian text. That's what it's based around, and then it combines the translation with some images of Egyptian artifacts. And so basically, let me tell you about the text. So the story is 3,000 years old. It's amazing, and it's about a father and a son. And the father is a miner, and he's taking his son to the capital of Egypt in order to enroll his son in scribal school. And this is around 1500 BCE. And his son, and along the way, they're on the boat, and they're on the boat in the Nile, and he's telling his son to study hard in school, because if he doesn't study hard, then he's going to have a really hard life doing jobs other than the scribe. So he says, you can become a farmer or a carpenter. But these jobs are the worst in the land. You should never want them. And the job of the scribe is the best job in the whole world, and you should always want to become a scribe. And so there's a lot of exaggeration involved.
No,
and then at the end of this,
go ahead. I'm sorry. You go.
At the end of the story, he gives his son a little bit of wisdom about how to navigate life in the capital. Because previously the son was coming from sort of the outside of Egypt, and now he's going right into the heart of it. And they're different, social customs from one part of the empire versus another.
Well, listen, first of all, kudos. Michael is the youngest ever recipient of the annual Emerson Prize, awarded by the Concord Review for Outstanding Promise in History. You were introduced to this at a very young age in middle school. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So it actually started during the pandemic when I had a lot of time on my hands, but not a lot to do. And so I decided to start learning Egyptian. And one reason I chose Egyptian out of all the things I could have chosen to do with my time was because I wanted to take a summer course at Brown on Egyptian, but it was canceled because of the pandemic.
Right.
So I asked the professor, who is one of my co-authors, Christian Casey, if he could teach me Egyptian, and he said yes. So I started learning with him.
So you started learning with him, and it was, as so many people were I won't say forced, but kind of put in a different direction as a result of the pandemic. You've also been a big advocate of the importance of younger folks reading beyond just the textbooks that are in school, but reading books that are outside of what might be the norm of what are the required readings, so to speak. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So I think it's really important that, people, as you said, rather than just reading the books that have been assigned to them, which is great. I think they should, go beyond. I think they should read as much as possible. And I've always loved reading, but I think that I think reading is one of the most important things you can do in your entire life, and that there really is no such thing as saying, "Oh, I'm reading too much," or I've read too much today. I have to do something else. I think you should always, and even me as well. Sometimes I get distracted and I think I should go back to reading. Because I think it's the more you read, really, just the wiser and more intelligent you become, and the more experienced you become. Even if it's just a fiction text, not necessarily nonfiction. I think one of the big benefits of reading this story is that it really I think it really gives you some empathy, because it allows you to sort of transfix or transpose yourself onto the character that's involved, even if they're in a very different time and place. Like for me, for Khedi, the father's name in the story is Khedi, and the son's name is Pepi. And he's it was actually really fascinating to read about a father wanting a better life for his son, because I felt like something that was very I don't think it applies to my own life, but I can see it in the world around me, and so it allowed me to connect with Pepi as a character, and Pepi and Khedi, and I think it just expands your general definition. And so I always go back to this. Sorry, that last part didn't make any sense, but I always go back to this definition of studying history by David McCullough, who said that one studies history just like one travels to expand the experience of being alive. And I find that a particularly fascinating definition. Like, just like you wouldn't want to stay in the same place in the same community your whole life, you also don't want to just stay in the same place in time your whole life. And I think it's important to read history and important to read fiction as well, because it allows you to see what it was like to be someone living 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago or whatever it was, or 3,000 years in the case of ancient Egypt.
Yeah. So first of all, that's a great point in terms of reading. I read a lot. I've always read a lot, and my mother used to drop me. I've said this before. My mother used to drop me off at the library, and she'd go and do her errands and whatever, and come back and pick me up. And I always had a couple books that I had checked out and would be reading. So I want to come back to something that you said a moment ago, and it's a question that I asked you about reading things that are not necessarily the books that are the assigned books in school, and reading outside of that norm. What are some of the things that you like to read at this age in your life that are not part of the regular text that you read for school?
Well, lately I've actually been reading a few short stories. That isn't usual of me, but I decided to start picking them up, and I really like them. Like I read The Birds, which is kind of a horror story, a little bit, by Daphne du Maurier. And then I've just been reading. I'm in the middle of reading Rip Von Winkle.
Wow.
By Washington Irving. And then I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. Oh, that's right. I just finished, what's it called? Benjamin Button by
Really?
F. Scott Fitzgerald. Yeah, I actually really loved that story. It's strange to think about, a strange concept. I think they made a movie out of it, actually, with DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah, they did. Was it DiCaprio or I think it was Benjamin Button's was Brad Pitt. But no, I'm with
Pitt,
you.
that might have been right. Yes,
Yeah.
I might have messed that up. Yeah.
Brad Pitt. That's okay. You probably weren't born when it came out, so. So those are some good. Those are some good reads.
Oh yeah. Wait, let me tell you one more thing. The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. That was for school. It violates your rule, but still, it was an excellent book.
Well, but they made a movie out of that, Remains of the Day, with Anthony Hopkins, I believe. Interestingly enough, Michael, there's so many books that have been written over time that have turned into works of movie or stories that have been television, dramas and all this, that, and oftentimes this is what I remember as a youngster. I would I would see a movie or see a TV show or something that was on the screen and didn't know that there was a book about it. And then I would go back and find the book, or that it was based on a book written by someone. I would go back and find the book and go, oh, wow, this came from a book. But the point I'm getting to is the writing strength and the writing chops that you have. Where did that come from? What was, kind of your seeding there? What got you to say, I want to start to write as well as, be someone that reads a lot?
Well, I mean, I've always been someone that's loved writing, just like I've always loved reading. And I remember in middle school, I used to love to write, and I was writing an essay, and friends might ask me, Michael, can you how does this come so easily to you? So I don't know. I suppose. I never thought of myself as like someone who's like a particularly excellent writer, but I suppose that you could say it was other kids telling me that, that my writing was good, that brought that realization out of me.
I get it. So that encouragement from some of your colleagues and classmates and all that kind of helped to push you along in that space. What are you working on, if anything? And again, I don't want to put any kind of weight on you because what you just put together is fantastic, and it's inspiring, and it's visually just amazing. I mean, I was reading through it and going, wow, I had a smile on my face while going through it because I love Egyptian art and artifacts. So I'll start with that. But what are you working on now, if anything, in terms of your next piece?
Well, I hope to do another one of these, but with a different Egyptian text. But I finished up with this one, so I haven't had too much time to think about that. But I do think it'll be about. Obviously, I don't want to spoil too much, but I do think it'll be about a priest.
Wow.
It'll be about. Or perhaps I think it'll be about a different aspect of life. This was a little bit of the economic aspect of Egyptian life and history, and now I want to do something a little bit maybe in a different sphere of Egyptian history.
Well, I think whatever the work is, it's going to be great. You are phenomenal in your work, and congratulations on the awards you've received: American Book Fest, Nonfiction, Story Trade, Pencraft. These are all just amazing. And of course, the New York Times included the book in its 2024 holiday gift guide. And I applaud you, young fella. You are doing the work, and I'm so happy that you have had this success. And we want to keep you motivated and pumped up to continue to do great work, because This is what we all pray for and pull for our young folks. And I'm really proud, Michael, to have you on our show this morning, and how folks can let folks know how they can find you or learn more about the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. So our website is beascribe.com, and so you'll have all the links to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or to all the different websites there.
Excellent. Michael Hoffman, young fella doing the work, writing, author of Be a Scribe. Thanks for being with us this morning on Choose Views. And as you start to put together that next one, you got to let us know, because we definitely want to have you back, okay?
Absolutely.
All right, Michael, have a great day, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
You too.
All right, bye now. If that doesn't inspire you in this crazy, I wanted to have some of that young energy on, and if that doesn't inspire you, then I don't know what will. But the book is called Be a Scribe: Working for a Better Life in Ancient Egypt, because we got to work for a better life in current America. Check him out, Michael Hoffman, Hoffen. Good to have this young fellow with us this morning. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. I know we've got some calls on hold. Stay with us. We're going to get to you. We have another guest that's going to be with us that I know you guys are going to want to hear from, and what she has to say. When we get back, we'll be talking with Kate Lincoln Goldfinch in a few minutes. 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey guys, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Wow, how cool is that? Young Michael Hoffman, Be a Scribe, and I want you guys to check out his book, and make sure you're supporting this young cat and what he's doing. So listen, I get a couple of cleanups on aisle 7 before we get to Kate. I made a comment about the stereotypical, labeling of or description of those who voted for 34-time convicted felon, and nobody take offense to that. I was talking about the stereotype that is not always it's not accurate. That the push out there that the voter of Trump is this uneducated, long-haired, non-well-kept person. That's a stereotype. That's not the norm. The norm is someone that doesn't look like that. Has a middle-class job in America and all the rest. So you don't get 78 million people that fit a stereotype like that. So anybody that may have been, got your undies in a bundle over that, no offense meant at all. It was simply to make a description or to correct this conversation around the stereotypical person. And that is not even close to being accurate. We get folks all over the description of communities that look like a lot of us that voted for 34-time convicted felons. So just, understand, guys, don't get your feathers ruffled on that. All right. A little bit of cleanup on aisle 7. I always like to do that. I like to play fair. And in that, we got someone that's truly playing with, as I say, sleeves rolled up, elbows deep in the fight in the conversation around immigration. Right after the election, we were fortunate to have Kate Lincoln Goldfinch with us, who is more than just an attorney that specializes in immigration. She's a fighter. And we're proud to have Kate with us again this morning. Good morning, Kate, and welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I saw that barrage of executive orders that came down yesterday, and we knew it was coming. It wasn't a surprise. Anybody that was surprised by that, I mean, am I crazy in saying it that way? Anybody that was surprised by what happened yesterday might be part of the problem because they weren't paying attention for the last, 9 years. But
yeah,
not trying to point fingers. Not trying to point fingers.
Yeah. No surprises.
No surprises. Go ahead.
The actions that they took, so there were the executive orders and then there were actions. So there's an app called CBP One that actually, it's a governmental app, so it's glitchy, but it has been the way that parole applicants and asylum seekers have been going through the process, applying, getting their appointments, et cetera. And it's actually helped a lot at the border because people can access the application and come in for an interview as opposed to waiting at the border. They completely shut it down. And there were some pretty heartbreaking videos of people who, they've been in the system for months. They've been waiting for their interview and just lost all access, lost all ability to come. So asylum was shut down through CBP-1. And then the executive orders, of course, there's the declaration of the invasion along the border and the claiming that cartels are terrorist organizations. What that does is it gives the administration a lot of freedom and power to do what it wants, because if it's under invasion, well, then the executive doesn't have to check with Congress on a lot of things that they want to do. And we did get the executive order ending birthright citizenship as well. Now, none of that's going to hold up in court, in my opinion, but it was what we expected from day one. The only thing we didn't see was raids starting on day one, so we're going to have to wait and see what happens today.
So this is what I love about you and the work that you do. You are plugged in. You're that leader. You're that voice that's plugged in and knows what's happening. And the shock and awe of what happened yesterday, you were prepared for and knew that those things were going to be coming. CBP-1, horrible. I mean that it's been removed. And because these are people who were trying to do it the right way. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, but that's where a lot of people missed or consciously were blind to the conversation around what people are trying to do that are asylum seekers. These are folks that were, quote, standing in line to do it the right way in the system, and they shut that down. So that had nothing to do with the price of eggs or the price of gas or the price of a loaf of bread. That had to do with just, hardcore meanness to humanity.
I went to the border recently, months ago, and just crossed and went to a church shelter and offered to, talk to some of the people there. And I talked to, 30 or 40 people that day. They were all, the stories would just break your heart. And that's the thing that I do wish some of these people, like, what drives someone away from their family, out of their home, through countries to get to our border is some really awful stuff. But most of the conversations that I had with these people who had, lost their children, their spouses have been murdered, they were struggling with the app. They were desperately trying to upload the right photo and make sure that everything was done and, confirm that they were, in line waiting for their appointment. And you're right. This was the way that asylum seekers could go through this process without coming to the border, trying to cross without permission, all of that stuff that upsets Americans, which, this was the way around that. And to just shut it down on day one it's really heartbreaking and not the right move.
No, it's not the right move. And for those who said that they were voting for anything other than that kind of carnage, the people lied to themselves, or they were willfully willing to see that this kind of inhumane actions would take place. Kay, there's so much I could ask you. I just want to sit down and pick your brain, and maybe we'll do a pre-record and spend some more time, because so many people are concerned about this. I'm going to ask you this question. I'm in Chicago, which is where we're based, but there's 10 other big cities that are on the quote unquote target list. Holman was here a few weeks ago and went after Mayor Johnson. He went after Governor Pritzker, and I'm sure that that's going to happen again, and it happened in other cities. Here's a specific question I've been asked by two different communities that I quote unquote serve with this show. I was asked the question, will people who, let's say, for example, have a person that's working for them that may be of a Latin, Hispanic, Mexican, Guatemalan ancestry that's here in the country, who's working for someone, for example, cleaning their home or taking their children to school, or a variety of other things that folks of that community have done and are doing. If that person, for example, is bringing home the children, picked them up from school, got out of the car, and is walking them into the door of, the home of Bill and Mary, Smith, will ICE have the permission or the audacity to go into that private residence to seek out that person, that woman or that man who may be bringing their children home from school? Do you know what I'm saying? I'm being very literal.
Sure.
I was asked that question, and I didn't have an answer for it other than what I think I know, which may not mean nothing. So can you help me with that? Help us with that.
Sure. Well, the Constitution applies. So the Fourth Amendment right against search and seizure and the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent, all of that attaches to immigrants. So what that means is the cops, the immigration agents cannot enter into a residence or the private parts of a business either without permission or without a warrant to enter. So everybody who's undocumented needs to understand this rule. They need to understand if somebody's knocking on the door, you don't open it. The kids of the family need to understand this. We ask for the warrant, slide it under the door, show it through the window, make sure it is a warrant with permission to enter that's signed by a judge. And if it isn't, we don't open the door. And that's the era that we're in. Now, with all that being said, I do anticipate that the Trump administration is going to start to claim that they can break those rules of constitutional protections because they're claiming that we are at war. We are under an enemy invasion, according to their language in these executive orders. My guess is that we're going to start to see immigration do all sorts of, unconstitutional stuff without due process and then claim that they're allowed to because we are at war. So, that's sort of the current state of things.
All right. Part two of part three's questions that came to me. So in Chicago, we have a large population of folks who are from Europe, as we do in other big cities. But if you know Chicago, we talked about this before in your time. We have people that are in Chicago that are immigrants from other parts of the world other than the, quote, southern border. What's going to happen in those cases? Do we think that ICE is going to go, and I'm just going to be literal, so I'll tap dance around it. We have a strong Polish population here in Chicago. Is ICE going to roll up on, those families? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Anecdotally, I would say probably not based on my experience. But here's what I know. What I've heard, is that the low-hanging fruit for immigration is going to be people who are already in the system for some reason. Either they've already been ordered removed by an immigration judge or they've already been arrested and booked through the criminal process. They've had their fingerprints taken, and now FBI federal agencies can access all of that information. They're going to go to those people's houses specifically. Those are the directed actions. Other than that, they're going to conduct sort of sweeping raids to try to capture people. They're going to, park at the supermarket where there's a lot of immigrants, and they're going to go to the work sites where there's a lot of immigrants. And then it's going to become really important for the people around those actions to understand and enforce their own rights. That means you don't give up your immigration information. You don't talk to the police officer unless you're being arrested, and then you only identify yourself and nothing more. Because what will happen is what's called collateral arrests. So they'll go to target someone, and then they'll just sort of try and grab everyone around the area. So it's going to be up to every immigrant themselves to know their rights and to not give themselves away in those moments.
Okay. You're going to be such an important resource to so many people. I know the literal work that you do on the ground, but I want to be able to partner with you as we go forward so that people understand what they can do, what they should do and should not do, because a lot of people don't know what you just said the last 3 minutes. They literally don't know that. And so I'm going to put this out here now as I'm in the fight with you to make sure that because people, they literally ask me questions like, Richard, how is that, what's going to happen here? And I want to be able to have an answer or the ability to give them something or give them a direction to get the answers. And I know that that's part of your cause. So the third question is this, and this is one that's probably personal, but larger personal. African-American male. There are people that have said to me over the last few months, Chu, do you think they're going to come and start trying to round up black folks who were citizens of the United States of America and try to deport black people out of the country. I've literally had, I don't know, a half a dozen black people that have asked me that question or posed that to me. So there we go, Kate. I'm putting a lot of weight on you this morning. I'm sorry to do that to you, but I added a couple plates to the squat machine.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that we're even having this conversation. And I mean, here, I can answer that from the perspective of an immigration lawyer, which is they're going after birthright citizenship. So U.S. citizens who are born in the country, and per the executive order, it's people whose mom is undocumented or has temporary status and whose dad is also not a citizen. And it's looking forward. So they're not attempting to apply this retroactively to people who were born before the order was passed. I have heard of no threats or actions that go after U.S.-born citizens who were born before yesterday. So to the extent that brings anyone comfort, I hope it does. And, like I said, I think this is just, obviously we've only had day one, and what they're doing, in my opinion, is setting the stage to essentially do whatever they want. When a president declares war, all of a sudden he can do a lot of things without congressional approval.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to stay watching this very closely, and I'm happy to talk to you anytime.
Yeah, I mean, and I wanted to have something substantive for folks who listen and follow our show and that follow our station, because people have been asking me very specific questions, and I didn't want to be fluffy this morning about this, and I wanted to be able to get to some core things that people need to hear. And I appreciate you taking the questions that way, because I know that they are weighted and weighty questions. How are you holding up, Kate? How are you holding up?
Oh, thanks. It's for me, I go into action mode. I was chatting with some of the lawyers at my firm yesterday, and they were very upset about everything that's happening. I was like, okay, we got to do this. We got to get out a video. We got to do the newsletter. We got to, and so I'm very much still in action mode, and I'm sure I'll have waves, but right now I'm just trying to get the information out to the people who need it.
Well, every time you need to come on or want to come on, if something develops and you're like, we need to get this out on a broad basis, you reach out to me, you reach out to us and say, I need to talk about this, or I think it's important, and we will make sure to get you on day of if necessary, because one of the things that I think has happened is that information and disinformation has led us down this path about in the conversation of immigration in general, but specifically the southern border conversation. And I think, you've got something to say about the disinformation. Would I be wrong there?
Definitely. That's my work. So I really appreciate you having me on. I always appreciate our chats. So I'm sure there will be many more.
Well, and I got to give a shout out to one of your colleagues in the fight for rights for humanity, for rights for Americans, but also someone that's a Texan, and that is that we lost Cecile Richards, and that's a heartbreak, because she's only 67 years old, and I'm kind of saddened by that, because she, like you, are fighters. All your lives have been fighting for the common good and doing the work for people who've been who haven't had a support system. So that's a tough loss.
Yeah, it's a big moment. Moment in our humanity.
Yeah, it is.
Right now.
Listen, Kate, it's always great to talk with you, and I so appreciate you taking the time this morning and the work that you're doing. Let's keep this conversation going, because people definitely need what you're bringing to the table. And I will tell you this as a fighter, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Self-care is important. I use this phrase in describing many folks like you. I had Ben Jealous on yesterday from the Sierra Club. Guys like you are, sleeves rolled up, elbows deep when you wake up every morning and you hit the ground running. So, but make sure, Kate, you're taking care of yourself, and make sure that you are, keeping sustained in this fight. Okay.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, Kate. Be well. Stay safe, and we will talk soon. Okay.
Okay. Thanks a bunch. Bye-bye.
Right, bye now. Guys, that was Kate Lincoln Goldfinch, who is an immigration attorney, owner and CEO of the Lincoln Goldfinch Law Offices. She's down in Texas, y'all. So when I use the phrase sleeves rolled up, elbows deep, she's one of those people. We're going to bypass the break. Let's grab a couple quick calls as we wrap up. Let's go to Steve real quickly in the Gold Coast. Steve, good morning and welcome to Choose Views.
Yes, I want to make a couple of points. And with regard to what a previous caller had suggested, I would love to be able to stand up and say, yes, the election was stolen. Donald Trump is not a legitimate president. But there's no evidence to that end. The reality is that, Democrats didn't turn out. Independents did not turn out to vote for Kamala Harris. Now, you could discuss and debate why that was from now until eternity, but that was the case. And we actually looked at, precincts all around this country. There simply is no disparity between the number of people who claimed that they voted and turned out and so forth and the numbers that we saw. People simply did not turn out to vote in the same way that they did in 2020 for Democrats. And this goes to my second point, and it explains something you were already discussing, and that is that, yes, some of these people are just objectively evil. I mean, I'm talking about the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers and others, that sort of ilk. But then there are a great many millions of Americans who are just, quite frankly, ill-informed, are getting their news from the most ridiculous of sources. About half of Americans thought we were in the midst of a recession on Election Day. I mean, you had record low unemployment. You had great growth in terms of wages. You had a booming stock market. GDP was very good. I mean, I can go through a long list of things that were happening in this country that were the definition of a good economy, but yet half of Americans thought we were in the midst of a recession, which is just ridiculous. I mean, not only that, but they kept harping on inflation. We took inflation from over 9% to the mid-2s on Election Day, and yet this is and Donald Trump's answer to that is, well, you know what? I'm going to lower grocery prices. Really? And well, it turns out that a few weeks ago, Donald Trump declared something the economists have been saying for years. You can't lower grocery prices. That's not how the economy works. Well, Steve, I guess Donald Trump finally admitted that. Well,
no, Steve. First of all, one of the reasons that I have not gone down the path of election fraud in this case is that we have data that says that way too many people stayed at home. Bakari Sellers said to me in May, he said, Richard, listen, it's going to be three things. This is before Joe stepped out of the race. He said it's going to be Joe Biden, Trump, or the couch. And he was right as rain. And the couch won. The couch won by 5% over Trump and 5.5% over Kamala, former Vice President Harris. So to that end, that's why I go back to let's figure out the solution going forward. Whatever shenanigans may have taken place, if we're going to have that conversation, let's have a better conversation about going forward, which is let's get that percentage to adjust, and also let's make sure that people are not continually getting information, like you just said, Steve, from sources that are not reputable, that have not been vetted, and are frankly full of a bunch of BS. And that's part of the problem that we have to work on fixing.
Absolutely. That's a huge part of the problem. Absent social media and absent the disconnect that America is experiencing in terms of traditional news outlets and sources and where they're getting their information, a lot of people have cut their cable, aren't reading newspapers. Instead, they're listening to Joe Blow's social media account, some guy in his basement with 2 million followers, and a high school diploma.
And thinking that's the way to go. Right.
Exactly. And go figure why they think that the world is going to hell.
Yeah.
When exactly the opposite. And when you tell them the truth, oh, no, that's just the propaganda. They're all lying to you. How do you have a discussion with somebody like that?
Right. When the information you just got that you're using to defend your argument was propaganda. So it's crazy.
Exactly.
Steve, it's good to hear your voice, man. I'm glad you're well. I'm going to try to squeeze one more call in before we wrap up. But thanks for your contribution this morning. All right, Devin, let's see if we can do this really fast. Cassandra, we got limited time, and we've been busy as heck this morning. What you got to say? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Richard. Excuse me. I called a couple of times, and in one of those discussions, I mentioned about how the White House under Donald, had scrubbed Barack Obama's bio.
Yep.
Well, I looked out there just moments ago. They scrubbed everybody. And I mean from Washington on down.
Sure did.
If you go to the WhiteHouse.gov, it's all Trump, 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 everything that he has done since he took oath. And it's scary. The narrative, it's hijacked on a large scale.
Cassandra, he's on a retribution tour, plain and simple. He's at war. Talk about at war. He's at war with anything that's not Trump. And America, to say America got bamboozled, no, I don't buy that. I never have. A lot of people were willfully ignorant and consciously arrogant. And that's what happened. Too many times, and you know this, Cassandra, people will go walk around in this fog like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Well, then wake the blank up because it's happening. And we tried to tell you, but you decided that, like Steve just said, that you were in your basement and you were smarter than everybody else. So,
right.
Thanks,
right.
Cassandra. Thank you. Thank you.
I mean, fortunately, what I did was printed those bios like a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So I've at least got a copy, but the average person,
nope,
not so much right now unless they have a change of heart, which I don't think that's going to happen in the next 4 years. So
stay strong, Cassandra. Glad to hear your voice, and thanks for your contribution. Stay warm because you're in Oak Park. I know it's cold here. It's cold here.
Yeah, it's cold. I'm getting ready to try and dip a toe outside and see what I get.
All right. Be safe, okay?
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Really quickly, let's see if we can get Rachel in. Rachel, we got... Rachel, are you there? We lost her. All right, Rachel, call us back tomorrow. We got to wrap up the show. Wow. Track meet, Devin. 773-763-9278 is our number. Send me a text. Send me an email at richard@wcpt820.com, and I'll respond. Guys, thanks for being with us. As always, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.